Welcome to Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose podcast. Our podcast showcases inspiring appraisers and professionals from the industry who are leaders in their field. How did they get to where they are? What have they learned along the way? What can we learn from them? Your host is real estate investor, entrepreneur, and appraiser, Michael Hobbs.
Hope you're having a great day and welcome to another informative, educational, and insightful Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Michael Hobbs, and I'm excited to have Glen with us. Glen, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Michael.
I definitely appreciate it. I'm excited. You've got a fascinating story, and friends, you know, it's your generosity, it's your thoughtfulness, and it's your helpfulness that continues to extend this. Every week, there's somebody else reaching out with some words of appreciation, sometimes some words of inquiry, and many times just some words of wow. Like, I didn't know that, or I would not have otherwise been informed of a possibility, or what unique and interesting experiences, either in the industry or out of the industry. So please go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Go ahead and like this podcast. Definitely pop your comments in there as well. And in the meantime, as we always do, we'll kick it off. Glen, you know, people want to know, were you born this way? How did you get into the valuation and appraisal profession?
Well, that's a good question. My dad was a CPA,
Okay.
served in the Navy in the Korean War, and grew up on a farm in Iowa and was determined never to be a farmer. He became a CPA, and so did my sister.
Oh, all right.
And I even looked at that, but it was just way too boring. So my talents were a little bit different. I like to write.
Yes.
And so I gravitated to appraising, graduated from the University of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote all the papers for every team assignment there because I like to write. And when I graduated from Florida, at the time, the computers weren't very advanced. I was using a Commodore 64 to write my papers with.
Yeah, I remember the Commodore. My brother loved that Commodore 64.
I mean, so I end up in appraising, and I was married to, my wife was a pediatrician, and we moved from Gainesville, where I had grown up, to Brevard County, which is known as the Space Coast.
Yes.
And while there, I remember my first appraisal job. The guy's name was Bill Pittenger, the MAI in charge of that office. And I came in and I was typing my papers on my 64. And he said to me, "What are you doing? That's not how we do this. We cut and paste."
Oh.
Okay. And we had a secretary that would put the reports together, and we'd go back and forth and make sure it was done right. And I said, "I don't need to do all that. Let me just show you."
Oof.
And so that led to his firm getting bought out by another one. And the second firm, when he saw that I was using the Commodore 64, he said, "Well, what would you recommend?" And I said, "How about the Hewlett-Packard dual floppies?"
Yes.
And we went to that, and we no longer had support staff to help us write the papers. We did our own reports, and it was so much more efficient. Those were the early days.
It was.
And when you mentioned how I got into it, so I became an MAI candidate, and at the time there was only one chapter of the Appraisal Institute in Florida, the Florida chapter.
Yes.
Now there's several chapters.
Yes.
And I was the computer club president.
Oh, okay.
So this company called me, and they said, "Can we do a presentation?" And I said, "Well, what do you have?" And they did it for me, and I said, "Yeah." And it was Argus, and Argus was based out of Texas, and they had just gotten started, and now they are the industry leader in financial appraisal software, particularly if you're doing spreadsheets.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to have to go through all the nitty gritty of designing an Excel spreadsheet,
yes,
you can use Argus. So that's gives you kind of the idea of when I got started, which was really the late 80s.
Yeah.
I worked in Brevard County, Melbourne area,
Yes.
uh, and then moved to Tallahassee. And while I was there, I was kind of their office guy, office expert.
Yes.
Uh, Tallahassee was growing by leaps and bounds because the state was growing, and
Mm-hmm.
Tallahassee is the capital. And so some of the buildings I appraised there were the Florida Restaurant Association proposed,
Wow.
Florida Hotel and Motel Association proposed, Florida Association of Counties. Actually, a friend of my parents was the director,
Yes.
and that's how I landed that assignment. And a building called College Station, which for anybody that knows, Tallahassee is on the
Yeah.
corner of Monroe and College, and still there today. And then I moved back to Brevard County, and probably I had two interesting assignments that I wanted to tell you about briefly.
Yes, sir.
One was at Port Canaveral, which is
Mm-hmm.
in competition for being the world's leading cruise line port. Back then, it wasn't when I did this, but a cruise line went defunct, and I don't remember the name of it. It was a Scandinavian one,
Mm-hmm.
and it was not one of the big ones. That's probably why it went under. And so the Port Authority wanted me to appraise the building. What can we do with this?
Oh,
They asked.
interesting.
And, the port owns the land. Okay. So
Yeah.
this leasehold improvement. Okay. So anyway, I looked at it, and they wanted to know if we could go multi-tenant. And I said, no, you got a really large lobby atrium area, and there's just really no way to adequately secure the individual offices, and just way too much common area.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it's got to be single tenant. And then I said to them, I noticed something when I entered the port. All your offices were in these very old, dilapidated buildings
Yes.
dating back to the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I said, why don't you consolidate them into this building?
Oh,
And that's
interesting.
exactly what they did. Followed my advice, which is rare. And, it was a highest and best use deal, right?
Yes.
So what's the highest and best use of this building? And it really boiled down to the port taking control of it and using it as their headquarters, and a much more prestigious building, much more appropriate for a port that wants to become a cruise line capital. So that was interesting. And the other interesting assignment, if you want to call it that, was, and this is over years that I was in Brevard County, just this medical office building. It was maybe 40, 50,000 square feet. And they had a helipad on the top of the roof.
Oh, really?
Because the hospital did not have its own helipad.
Yes.
And they were only a couple of blocks away from the emergency room. When I did the appraisal, though, the hospital had acquired its own helipad.
Mm-hmm.
So this helipad no longer contributed really any value. It wasn't being used. And I had a very polite but determined, property owner, the orthopedic physician who owned the building,
Yes.
said, no, that has value. I put, hundreds of thousands of dollars in that. And I said, I'm sorry, but it's of no use to anybody now. Okay.
Yes.
And, you'll have those moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Michael,
It's true.
where you've got upset clients who don't understand that there are rules that we have to appraise by, and just have to get prepared for that. But
yeah, and it has nothing to do with making you feel good. That's not part of our guidance on how it goes.
no, unfortunately, there was one other assignment there that I did, and keeping in mind I was in Brevard County I've been a commercial appraiser for 40 years, so
Oh, wow.
about 25 years of that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I got this assignment. I was working for an MAI, and he said it's 5,000 acres of grazing land.
Really?
And so I went to the property, and no, it wasn't 5,000 acres of grazing land. It was 2,000 acres of potatoes, 2,000 acres of corn silage, making it one of the largest corn farms in Florida.
Yes.
And a 1,000-acre dairy farm with over 100 buildings on it,
Really?
and 2,000 head of dairy cattle.
That's a lot of milk.
Yeah, and a very complex assignment. And I really should have turned it down. And my recommendation to any staff appraiser, if you run into a similar situation where your boss says, "Well, it's a very simple assignment," and you discover that it's far more complex,
Mm-hmm.
either renegotiate the fee or tell them you just simply can't do it.
Sure.
Give them a good reason why. Oh, I'm not competent. I'm not an agricultural expert.
Yes.
Okay. But I spent 2 months on that assignment, and I traveled to a little town called Spud, Florida, and it literally has a sign, Frito Lay's, Spud, Florida. You are entering Spud, and on the other side it says you're leaving Spud. It's nothing but potato farms. Potato farms. And I went there to research land sales for that. Then I got corn farm sales all over the Southeast. It took me a month to pull together.
Of course.
And then I had to do the dairy farm, which was complicated. I did not do an income approach.
Yeah.
But the client was the St. John's Water Management District, and they wanted the farm shut down because the dairy cattle were polluting the St. John's River.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
Okay, they're causing algae blooms and so forth. And the farm had moved from Lake Okeechobee for the very same reason. It was polluting.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that owned this farm said to the dairy farmer, "Hey, look, I'm providing your corn silage for your cattle. Why not bring your farm to me?
Mm-hmm.
That will eliminate the transportation cost of the corn."
Oh, okay.
And he did. And so, long story short, is nightmare appraisal. If I had not had quite a few years of experience appraising before doing that assignment, I might have quit after that assignment. So you have to be careful. This is my note to self, know your assignment. And don't go out there 2 weeks before it's due and find out that it's a dairy farm, potato farm, corn farm, and not grazing land.
Yeah, that is definitely a big one there. Wow, there's some fascinating assignments you've had, my friend. That's amazing.
Well, for me, it's like being a jack of all trades, and I think in the modern appraisal industry, there's a tendency to specialize.
Yes.
And that's to be expected.
Yes.
Being a jack of all trades has some advantages, but you end up being an expert at none, and that can be a problem when you get into highly specialized assignments like this one. So that was interesting, and then I wanted to tell you, Michael, that I had a period of time in my life where I was having to take care of my daughter. My ex-wife, the pediatrician, was no longer working due to a physical disability. And so my daughter moved down to Brevard from Tallahassee and stayed with me. And I employed her. And I went to work at Kennedy Space Center as a technical writer. And you would wonder, why did I do that? And it was to get benefits.
I totally get it, Glenn. You are not the first person that have shared that as a pathway. Got to take care of, as they say in the airplane, put on your oxygen mask first so that you can then put on the mask for your loved ones. So I'm not surprised.
That's it.
Take that.
And so so I worked there for about 5 years. And during that time, the real estate bubble started to appear. And towards the end of my 5-year tenure at Kennedy Space Center, I got an opportunity to work with a friend of mine who was doing residential work. And I started supplementing my income as a tech writer by working for him. And then his office manager passed away, and he needed my help. So I just told my boss at Kennedy Space Center, I'm sorry, but I'm going to take this job. And I helped him, and then I
Mm.
transitioned back into commercial appraising.
Mm-hmm.
Never looked back. But that was an interesting period of time, the bubble. There was plenty of work back then.
Yeah.
So I wanted to tell you, if I may,
Yeah, please.
Michael, I want to mention one guy's name. I didn't want to mention any of the MAI's names that I worked with just because out of privacy issues. But this man, he's passed away, and such a nice guy. His name was Al Tuttle, Tuttle.
Yeah.
Well, I was in his former office one day in Melbourne,
Mm-hmm.
and my boss at the time, another MAI who had bought Al's firm, came in and he said, "I found these appraisals. Do you think we should keep them?" I didn't look at him right away, but later on in the day during my lunch break, I looked at him and I just lit up. The first one was Kennedy Space Center.
Really?
Okay.
Wow.
He appraised the property when it was acquired.
Oh,
okay. And I said that might be considered some kind of historic document because the government relied on it when they negotiated the purchase of the property.
Mm-hmm.
But the second one was even bigger, the Panama Canal.
Oh, really?
He appraised the Panama Canal, and it was when Jimmy Carter was president.
Yes.
Okay? And Jimmy Carter was trying to decide what to do. He ends up basically giving the canal to Panama.
Yes.
I know there were certain conditions that had to be met. And I brought that up because it's made the news just lately.
Yes.
Once again. And so I told my boss, I said, if I were you, I'd hang on to these. I think they have historical significance, if nothing else.
Wow.
See if somebody wants to take it as a donation as part of the historic records
Yes.
of these things. But I just thought that was so cool.
I agree.
So
that would be, I mean, even just you think about, obviously you got started in the profession before a lot of people did. We have a lot of peers that got started around the same time, but there are a lot of people in the profession who your experience quite predates. But the opportunity that an appraisal report like the Panama Canal or the Kennedy Space Center, like that would be quite for the right positioning, a useful tool for educating individuals coming into the profession or that are in the profession about valuing unique properties. Especially to, like you said, hey, if it's at the Smithsonian or some other public place, like this is no longer in the private domain.
Well, to me, I think what a good point to take from that as well, they are special purpose properties.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that people don't realize that you have an opportunity to learn things and to deal with people that you might not otherwise meet. Okay.
Yes.
And learn things and see very interesting properties that you didn't even know existed.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many types of appraisal assignments. And before we wrap today, I'll be touching on a couple others because I ended up doing some of these. But I did want to tell a story. I'm going to keep it short. I'm bad about not keeping these.
We got time. You're all right, man. We're not running late. We're right on schedule.
Okay. And so here's the story. And I make my friends and family laughed at me when I told them about it. So it's okay to laugh. So I'm doing this appraisal, and it's a branch restaurant, and it's a Boston market.
Okay.
And the client is an attorney because he owns the land.
Yes.
Okay. So once again, we're dealing with leasehold improvements. Okay.
Yes.
And it was a hot day, and I had this old beat up Subaru station wagon, and with roll up windows, and it was like July or August, and brutally hot and humid. I think it had just rained, and I was out there measuring the building and taking photos and all that, and I get back in my car, and this purple bus drives up, and I thought, wow, tourists. I'm glad I'm finished, and I'm going home. And the next day, I've opened up the local newspaper back when people actually got newspapers at home.
Yes,
and it said Ed McMahon visits Melbourne, Boston market,
No
and
kid.
he was in the bus. Okay,
Yep.
so I missed meeting Ed McMahon, and it was a brand new Boston market, and his one of the jobs, one of the gigs he landed after working with Johnny Carson
Yes.
uh, was he worked for Boston Market, and he was kind of like their spokesperson.
I didn't know.
And he would go to all the new stores, all the new restaurants,
Yes.
and visit them. And it's a big media event. Okay, so I
Oh,
missed that. So I get this phone call though, Michael, that you might find to be interesting. It's the client, and his voice sounded kind of distant. So I asked him, "Do you mind if I ask you where you're calling from?" "I'm calling from my Learjet." And I said, "You're calling from your Learjet?" Yeah. I remember the guys from Miami. Okay.
All right.
All right. All right. And there are some well-heeled folks in Miami, just like there's
especially then, even more so now. Yes.
even more so now. But anyway, so I asked him, how's he calling me? He said, "Oh, you don't know about cell phones."
Oh,
And this was the early cell phones that they were big. They were like a big walkie-talkie.
yes,
Okay.
they were. I remember those.
And this is before they had been rolled out to the general public. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then I said, "Well, do you mind my asking where you're coming from?" And he said, "British Columbia, Vancouver." And I said, "Well, do you mind my asking why you're up there?" And he said, "Well, as a result of Hong Kong being given back to China, the People's Republic of China,
Yes.
at the end of the 99-year lease from the British government,
Yes.
if you were a citizen of a British Commonwealth country,
Yes.
you could transfer your assets to another British Commonwealth country without penalty, without taxes, fees, anything."
Really? Fascinating.
Yeah, so money was flooding from Hong Kong to
Yeah.
Vancouver, and Vancouver overnight had a massive real estate boom.
Yes, they did.
So he told me about that. He was buying properties in Vancouver, and so then I really kind of got a little depressed, I have to say, because when I graduated from the University of Florida back in '85, and that's 1985.
Mhm. Yes.
I was offered a full ride scholarship, okay,
Yes.
if I would be a graduate assistant at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Yeah. And, I took the GMAT exam and I scored high enough to like 640. I was
Okay.
97th percentile in English.
Oh, that's
And I checked the box. Anybody that's interested in me can contact me.
Mhm.
And UBC contacted me, and my wife, the one that's disabled and living in Tallahassee,
Yeah.
said, "I won't move to Vancouver. It's way too cold."
Oh,
So I
she
missed
never visited Vancouver, has she?
no, and so
Too bad.
I missed that bus too, Michael.
Oh man.
Not just the purple bus, but the one that would have got me in on the ground floor of one of the largest modern real estate booms. So I vowed that if I ever have a boat, I'm going to call it Missed MYST Opportunity.
Glenn, I like your sense of humor, man. That's good stuff. That is good.
As appraisers, you do get in a position where you become aware of things.
Yeah.
That if you have the means and it's not a conflict of interest,
Yes.
you could invest and make quite a bit of money. And so that's another interesting aspect of appraising.
Totally.
So anyway, so that happened. And,
Yes,
and one other story, and then I'll move back to the primary topic.
Yes, sir.
This is the other story that you might find interesting. So I had this brother-in-law in Gainesville, and he landed as a client, the Dr. Cade, the inventor of Gatorade.
80% of all businesses fail within 5 years, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. With so many roles and responsibilities that must be managed and have nothing to do with appraisal reports, is it any surprise that it's hard to keep up, much less having a sense of peace, stability, and profitability that comes from growing your business? Given all of this, you might already be thinking about exiting your business one day. Don't miss the limited opportunity to work with Michael, a real estate expert and professional coach. He has worked with more than 300 owners and entrepreneurs to find their highest and best use by solving problems that reach their most important goals. Compress decades of learning into days by working with Michael. Michael is famous in real estate and business coaching. With his help, you can accelerate your growth, increase your quality of life, and earn more money, all while ultimately doing less. Michael helps you not just grow your business, but also find new purpose in it and in your life. If you're ready to take control instead of being controlled, contact him on LinkedIn or email him at michaelh@paru.com.
Okay.
No kidding. I've never known the inventor of Gatorade, so it's Dr. K.
Yeah, Cade, Cade.
Oh, Cade. All right. Got it.
And Arnie Zimmerman, my brother-in-law, convinced Dr. Cade that he should invest in land, like a land banker in Southwest Florida, Naples, Venice.
Oh, goodness.
Okay. And this was back before that area really started taking off.
Yes.
And so Dr. Cade bought up thousands of acres and then eventually became residential subdivisions and so forth. Okay. So one day, this other friend of mine, and I won't name him, but
yes,
he was an appraiser also. He had bought a 250-acre lake. It was really 400 acres, but 250 of its water.
Yep.
And it was a man-made lake in Palm Bay, Florida.
Wow.
Okay. And General Development Corporation developed Palm Bay, went into bankruptcy, and the federal bankruptcy judge ordered liquidation of all assets. So he bought this lake for $100,000.
Come on. Are you kidding me?
Nope. Because it was a very short fuse, and people weren't even aware that this lake was there.
Wow.
But he knew about it. He had been watching it for quite some time, and he knew about the bankruptcy. So he bought it for $100,000, and he wanted to flip it to my brother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
So I did an appraisal as a proposed subdivision.
Oh, all right.
Okay. Lakefront subdivision. It was like 1 acre lots because it was going to have to be on well and septic because there was no city water or sewer. And my appraisal is the only time I ever had an assignment where I was allowed to provide a range of value.
Nice.
And the wholesale value of those lots, pre-developed, I came up with between $1 million and $1.5 million. Okay.
Oh, goodness.
Now, this was a long time ago.
Of course.
But anyway, my brother-in-law, AZ, Arnie Zimmerman, said, I'm reading up on Brevard County. I don't think much of the place. We're going to keep our money in Southwest Florida. Okay, so then, get a load of this. So in the local newspaper, there are people on the Indian River Lagoon, which is on the east coast of Brevard County between the mainland and the Barrier Island, is the Indian River Lagoon. In the southern part there, people were using jet skis to test them for Bombardier, which is a Canadian company.
Yeah.
That builds jet skis, among other things. And they were complaining about the pollution because it's a 2-cycle engine and the noise, and that they were disrupting the dolphins and so forth. And so I suggested to Ben, the guy that bought the lake, I said, look at this. Maybe you could sell the lake to them.
Wow.
And it wasn't 6 weeks that he sold that lake to Bombardier for exactly $1 million using my appraisal. So he flipped that property from $100,000 to $1 million in about 3 months.
That's beautiful. Goodness.
And he was an appraiser, and I was an appraiser.
Yeah. Oh.
So I jokingly would say that being an appraiser means you're taking vows of poverty, and that you're much like a Catholic priest because you're not the one making the money. But appraisers learn enough about the market that if they can put themselves into position, like my friend Ben,
yes,
because he borrowed that money, he didn't have $100,000.
Yes,
you can make money. And every good appraiser I've known, except for myself in Brevard County, has gone into development or brokerage and found ways to make money off of their market knowledge. So you can acquire a vast base of knowledge by being an appraiser. Part of the experience of doing the appraisals is learning about the markets, also learning about how to apply the principle of highest and best use, and maybe find out that a property that's being underutilized has much more value if you put it to another use. And so that's the moral of the story. So
Those are great.
enough of the stories.
That's the best part about it. I think that's people's biggest takeaway is how much they learn from the thoughtfulness, the openness, and the reflection of peers. Because they're never going to know about a Dr. Cade, and they're not going to get a sense of the Kennedy Space Center, the Panama Canal. I mean, there's no possibility, but through the generosity of others sharing, much less 2,000 acres of potatoes. I mean, that's a lot of spuds.
That's it. And, Kennedy Space Center, as you know now, has really taken off. They're predicting over 100 launches this year in 2025.
Well, I wasn't aware of that.
And I see the launches clear as day out of my backyard.
No kidding.
Yes. SpaceX, which is, of course, Elon Musk and his satellites, but also Blue Origin.
Yes.
And I think that's Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
So it's become a billionaire's playground, you might say.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm so glad you're in the playground. I mean, they say that it's all about the 5 people you most closely associate with or in proximity of.
Yeah, well, I've done my best to find out where Elon lives because he's got to have a house over here somewhere. He spends too much time here, but actually he's in D.C. And he claims he doesn't have a house, so who knows? Anyway, so what I was going to go back to, if I may, to wrap. I mentioned earlier on needing a job with benefits. Now, and my recommendation to new appraisers or people considering the field would be that you may have to work in a small to mid-sized shop like I did early in my career. I did that for a good 10 plus years in order to gain the experience and also the educational aspect if you're going for the MAI designation. You got to complete all the courses for an MAI. You got to get your experience credits. Then you got to do a demonstration appraisal report and then sit for the comprehensive exam. Okay. Well, as you're trying to gain your qualifications, keep testing the waters to see if you can go to work either for a larger appraisal firm that does provide benefits, or maybe even a bank, or in my case, and this is where the final segue here, I went to work for Orange County, the property appraiser's office.
Oh, did you really?
Yes, and that's in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, Orlando, Florida. We're not talking about Orange County, California.
No, we're not talking about the big Orange County. We're talking about the little Orange County. Despite all of Orlando's growth, it's still nowhere near as big as Los Angeles. But Orlando, for 2 years, I was the office team lead, which means I was in charge of all the office buildings. And Orlando has grown by leaps and bounds. And then for 6 years, I was the industrial lead. And you would think that I was more interested in the office, and it turned out that the industrial to me was more interesting than the office. Among the things I did mass appraisal assignments involving Lockheed Martin, and they have an East Campus and a West Campus in Orlando.
Yes.
And they're a major military contractor. And my having served in the Army, which I did many years ago, I was interested in some of this, particularly their Javelin missile, which is an anti-tank missile. And I was trained on anti-tank weapons when I was in the Army. So I got to do the tour and got into a long conversation with one of the engineers there about the Javelin. But that was quite interesting. Also getting the a full tour of an Amazon facility where you get to see the robots do their gig.
Really?
Yeah, it was about a 4-hour tour. I was pretty tired after walking all the ramps. You just walk these ramps up and up and up and up, and then finally we got to where the robots were, and there's signs up there: "Do not enter the robot area because they don't know you're there, and
No.
they'll literally run you down."
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a train. I mean, it's coming at you. It's
Yeah, they're moving fast,
oh,
and that was pretty impressive. So and then a state of the art, brand new Coca-Cola distribution facility that's where the building was about 100 feet tall, and you would say
100
why?
feet tall.
Yes, because they went up,
Yeah.
and robots bring down what they need from the upper part of the building to the ground floor.
Wow.
So you take full advantage of that footprint. Yeah. And so, the technology, and that's probably a good place to wrap from my end, would be to talk about technology. And while I was kind of on the cutting edge when I first got into the business, I've been kind of left in the dust, but I would recommend that, particularly with the new appraisers,
Hmm.
fresh out of college, because you have to have that degree, a 4-year degree to be a certified appraiser,
Sure.
uh, whether it's residential or commercial. These folks tend to be very knowledgeable about computers. Getting on top of AI and learning everything you can about AI to help your career. Microsoft has, with Microsoft 365, provides Copilot. I signed up for that gig just to see what I can learn, and Copilot wants to tell you how to write. Okay,
Oh,
and it becomes a good experiment to let Copilot assist you with what you're writing, and then compare that to what you were going to write, and then decide whether or not you're going to try to incorporate that feature in writing a report. But there's so much more, and with the databases that are going on, and we know that that's becoming a very big business, has been for some time. Uh, that with artificial intelligence, if you tell whoever it is, whether it's Copilot or another one, basically go fetch this. Go give me all the information on this. The amazing plethora of literal wealth of information that you get bombarded with. You end up with so much information that you have to figure out how to narrow it down, and that's going to become a way to get leads on information. We know we have to rely on CoStar if you are a commercial appraiser and doing appraisals for banks and other major institutions.
hmm.
You really got to have CoStar, which is expensive, and is another reason to maybe get involved in a larger firm. Or in my case, I worked with CoStar when it first came out.
Oh,
I,
really?
sub- I subscribed to it in the bubble period,
Yes.
uh, and then years later, I get back into it with all this. And then at the property appraiser's office, we had it. I worked for Valley Bank, a mid-size bank
Oh, yeah.
based out of New Jersey,
Yes.
as a review appraiser,
Hmm.
commercial review appraiser. That was fairly recent. We had CoStar for that, and we would sometimes do internal evaluations. Okay, they didn't have to have an appraisal, so we would do an internal evaluation. And it would be impossible to do one without using CoStar. So our dependency on the technology has grown to the point that we have to have it. So the question is how to be efficient with it, how to
Hmm.
get access to it when you need it. Okay, get benefits if you can, and become AI. What would be the word here? Like you can read and write. So
Yeah, I would use the word proficient.
literacy, AI
Yeah.
literate.
AI literacy.
And I'm actually working on that part myself.
Oh, wow.
Uh, I just want to know. I like to write, and also creatively, and so I want to know how to use it. And it's amazing going from the days where we had to go to the county courthouse to do sales search in written records.
Hmm.
Okay, to today where everything in most of your major metros anyway is readily available in databases, and you just have to have access.
Yes.
Uh, so I feel that we're still going to need appraisers. They think they're going to replace us. The banks would love to replace us, particularly the residential ones. But so far, they haven't been able to come up with that virtual appraiser that can do what a truly well-trained, educated, experienced professional appraiser can do. And that's the answer. Always stay on the cutting edge, always stay on top of your education, always do the best job you can as an appraiser, be thorough, look under every stone, and make sure you're not missing something important. And like in my case, the farm, know your assignment, know your assignment. So that's what I have to offer today, Michael. If you have any
I
questions.
appreciate it. No, that's phenomenal. I think one thing would be of interest to, first of all, thank you. Those stories, it's the part we love most is storytelling. I mean, it's why we go to the movies. It's like, tell a good story. And specifically, a couple of things I heard you mention is you had an opportunity to serve the country. Were you involved in anything valuation oriented, or was that just, you're just doing your basic and then doing your commitment?
No, I was not. I wasn't had anything to do with appraising. I
Okay.
will say that when I was at Kennedy Space Center,
Hmm.
uh, my unit, which was the 4th Infantry Division based in Colorado Springs, Fort Carson, Colorado,
Yeah.
was deployed to Kuwait, and I believe it was Desert Storm.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I took it upon myself. I did an email blast, which was risky, but this was at Kennedy Space Center.
Sure.
I got hundreds of responses, and I got permission. And I rented a big U-Haul. I drove around all around Kennedy Space Center, and also over at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, which was
Yeah.
next door. It's now called Cape Canaveral Space Station.
Okay.
And I picked up 5 tons of supplies. And then I drove them all the way down to Harris Corporation, Harris L3 in Palm Bay.
Okay.
And they paid to ship it. And when they saw how much I brought, they said, "We didn't think you were going to have this much." I said, "I didn't think I was going to collect this much." And then I got a letter from the commander of the 4th Infantry Division,
Mhm.
a major general, and thanking me and thanking all the people that helped in the project.
That's amazing.
Greatly appreciated. We gave them all kinds of personal supplies while they were out in the hot desert there preparing to go to war. So
Oh, that's amazing. Wow, that's what a wonderful, wonderful service. What a wonderful contribution. You mentioned, did you study anything real estate related when you were at the University of Florida?
oh yes, I majored in finance, but I
Okay.
also took all the courses for a real estate degree,
Yeah.
and that included an appraisal course.
Oh,
And
really?
the person that taught the appraisal course was an MAI.
No kidding.
Yes,
Oh, get them while they're
so
young.
he was my faculty advisor.
Yes.
And when I took the GMAT exam, which I recommend that anybody that's going to college considering appraising or any other field, if it's a business degree,
Mhm.
take the graduate management aptitude test and see how you do. My faculty advisor, the MAI, who was the department chairman, said to me, "I have good news and good news." And I said, "What's the good news?" He said, "You scored well enough to go to an Ivy League school."
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Well, what's the other good news?" And he said, "I just happen to know that the University of British Columbia is looking for, yep, yep." And
Oh my gosh.
I wish I had done that, but you never know how your life would turn out. But to have been on the ground floor of the real estate boom in Vancouver with a master's in real estate from the University of British Columbia in Vancouver on the ground floor as an appraiser, that would have been awesome. But
Yeah, tell me about it. Man, that'd been something else. Oof. Oh, good man, goodness. That is
so there we go, sir.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Because you had studied, you had a real, finance, studied in finance, and you had, experience around real estate. Were you looking to go into brokerage when you graduated? Were you thinking about development or just being a real estate analyst, or how did
You know,
that get to appraisal?
it's funny that you would ask that question. Uh, at first, I thought about brokerage, but then when I researched that, and I'm talking about stock brokerage,
Yeah.
uh, when I researched that, I found out just how high stressful that job is,
Mm.
and I didn't think I wanted to jump into the fire like that.
Yes.
Of the courses I took, the ones I found most interesting were either real estate appraisal or real estate related, like the real estate finance course, for example.
Yeah.
Um, and so I found those to be the most interesting. And I like to write, and I wrote the appraisal
Mm.
that we had to do for the real estate appraisal course. But
Oh, okay.
it broke up into teams, and I always make sure I'm the one writing the report.
Yes.
And my brother-in-law had an apartment complex in Gainesville, it being a college town,
Yes.
and he provided me with all the information we needed to do an appraisal of that apartment complex.
Oh, really?
And so we got an A on that, and I knew that writing was my gig. And
Hmm.
if you like to write, appraising, commercial appraising, it can be a very interesting field because it's applied writing.
Yeah, that's you remind me of, and I don't remember which book, um, which book it was, but your comment just like so brought me back to that book, and it said it was a gentleman who was his autobiography. I think I know who it is, but I don't. I may be wrong, so I'll hold off on the name. But in reading his autobiography, he shared that why he became a Navy SEAL is because this instructor had shared that Navy SEALs are people who like to read a lot. And here this guy goes on to become a very famous Navy SEAL and obviously has his own book out and stuff. And I appreciate you sharing your experience there, Glenn, around your, interest and desire of writing. And I think that's a great connection point, one that probably is not discussed often enough about especially from a standpoint of complex assignments, narrative assignments, and the ability to, form an opinion and then be able to communicate it in a supportive approach. It's really,
Yes.
really very.
Well, one other comment, if I may,
Yes,
that's
please.
related to what you just said. The I'm big on highest and best use, and
That's the foundation evaluation, isn't it?
it is. And here's the thing: you'll be amazed, particularly in the mass appraisal world,
Mm-hmm.
which I did for 8 years, and I did serve as a uh, valuation adjustment board magistrate in
Yeah.
Orlando this past year, where I had to make rulings on where they were challenging the values of their properties.
Mm-hmm.
Prop, and You'd be amazed how often they just assume that the highest and best use is the current use.
Oh, I see that all the time on the files we look at. We do a lot of dispute resolution work, and it's always fascinating. And there's a lot of good reports out there that we see. There's a lot of reports. You're like, seriously? I'm like, come on.
But no effort to consider the possibility that maybe the highest and best use is something else or something different but related, and how that could impact the value. And in some assignments, it definitely can, particularly if you've got an underimproved property. Good example would be downtown Orlando. If you in the downtown metro, if you have
Yes.
a 2 or 3 story building, odds are, and it's on a significant size site,
Yes.
odds are it's under improvement and should be redeveloped. You just
Yes.
appraise it as land, right?
Mm.
But so highest and best use is critical, and I can't emphasize that enough. You know, the okay, one more thing because I had some additional notes in
Yes,
addition to
sir.
what provided to you. Okay, the going back. Well, okay, here's one. Always making sure that you don't lose sight of very simple mathematical relationships in appraising. So here I was one day in a VAB hearing, Valuation Adjustment Board hearing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's public record now, so I can talk about it.
Yes, of course.
Well, the magistrate was an MAI, and I knew who
Okay.
he was.
That's
And
helpful. Actually dealing with a competent person.
yeah, and The property was the Darden Restaurant's headquarters facility, which
Garden
it,
Restaurant, sure.
it's the headquarters for Darden Restaurants nationwide, and it's located in suburban Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a multi-story Class A, really mixed use building, but predominantly office.
Yes.
And as I said in the hearing, top of the line, state of the art Class A building.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it over and over again to the chagrin of the tax rep who was with the Ryan Group,
Okay.
largest tax rep firm in the country.
Yes.
And they tend to land clients like Darden.
Yes.
And at the very end of the hearing, the tax rep, I mentioned what I used, okay, in the valuation of Darden, because we basically did an appraisal,
Yes.
okay, as the cap rate.
Okay.
And the tax rep, who was not an appraiser,
Yes.
okay, blurted out, "Oh well, that's too high." And a magistrate and I looked at each other, and we said at the same time, "Well, that means the real cap rate is lower." And what it was is Darden had sold the building.
Yep.
The 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 stakeholders, the board of directors, the stockholders in Darden got angry at Darden for consolidating all their offices into this one building and spending so much money on the building.
Yes.
They thought it was a waste of money. So they rebelled. They took over the board of directors, and they had the building sold to an investor, and it was a sale leaseback.
Well, totally. I saw where you were going right as you headed down that path.
And so the cap rate on the sale leaseback was a full percentage point below what I estimated in the hearing. And the tax rep, because he didn't have his basic math down, said, "Well, the cap rate's lower than that," so, meaning we were wrong. Well, but if you lower the cap rate, what happens? You raise the value, right?
Raise the value. That's definitely the case.
So keep those basic formulas straight, particularly when you're working late at night and you're tired, mentally tired, and hoping that somebody's going to check your work when you turn it in, so you don't make some major mistake like that. But that cost them the hearing, and the gentleman that represented Ryan no longer works for Ryan. I'm not saying it's because of that hearing, but he no longer works for them. So you can make career-changing decisions without even knowing it. So field. So if you have a trusted coworker who's sharp on their appraisal skills, have them look over your appraisal if you have a complicated assignment, and offer to do the same for them, because we all suffer from myopia, and it can be a career ending. So
I definitely appreciate that, Glenn. That is absolutely fantastic. Glenn, I mean, given everything you've seen and learned, I mean, I heard you mention 25 years in Brevard, 40 years as a commercial real estate appraiser. What are you looking forward to or optimistic about over the next 3 to 5 years?
Okay, in my case, I am semi-retired.
Oh, you really? What are you doing in your semi-retirement? You still doing some appraising or valuation? You're doing development now, joining your billionaire friends.
Oh, I wish.
All right.
But I'm looking forward to next VAB season.
Yes.
I won't go into details because that's would harm my own cause, but it can be lucrative.
Yeah.
And that's a way to supplement my income. I do have Social Security. I do have a state pension plan when I worked at Orange County Property Appraiser's Office.
Good for you.
And those, of course, are things that people going in the field need to be looking at, particularly as you get older. Have you adequately provided for your retirement? And I could supplement with appraisals, but I don't have CoStar, so I'm not going to be doing commercial assignments. I will take on review assignments, and particularly if the client has access to CoStar. I'll take on review assignments. Residential is getting to be where you have to really know the forms, and there's so much in the way of requirements. So if you're on top of that, you can make a good living as a residential appraiser. But you can't be a generalist like me that occasionally does a residential and when I'm really more of a commercial appraiser. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where I'm at. If I had an opportunity to invest in real estate, I would take it. But you have to have that nest egg. If you got a good nest egg, instead of putting it into Bitcoin, which to me is a giant Ponzi scheme,
Yes.
go find real estate that you're familiar with,
Yes.
and sit on that. I saw something, Michael. It was a Wawa gas station, brand new, long term.
Wawa gas station. Yeah, that's something else. A lot of people in the country don't know anything about that.
Yeah, and this one is in Indian River County, Vero Beach. It's right on the I-95 on the major drag, which is Highway 60. It's on the northeast corner.
Yes.
And it was for sale, and that is a sweet deal because it's a pure net lease,
Yes.
absolute net lease, and basically it's passive income. You do not, and so for tax purposes, it has clear advantages because you can leverage depreciation into your return.
Yes.
And for appraisers that are new to the industry that don't know about this, educate yourself. Find out about absolute net leases. Find out about how those returns get leveraged. And if you're ever in a position to take advantage of one, particularly a property type that you are experienced with and have confidence in, do it. That could be your retirement nest egg right there.
Well, that's a good one. That is some great guidance. I think that ties nicely back into your point earlier that you mentioned there, Glenn, about just because you choose to get into the valuation profession does not mean you have to take a vow of poverty. Matter of fact, you should take a vow of abundance because you're the most informed person as it relates to just about all the real estate. And, there's very little in the work that we do that's actually confidential, which is a mistake that most people sadly have. And therefore, all the research you do is still your knowledge. And it's your opportunity, and the relationships you develop as part of your verification and communication with market participants just opens up so many doors. So many doors it opens up. Glenn, we are so excited to have you join us. I just want to say thank you again for being a guest here on Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose podcast.
Thank you, sir, and appreciate the opportunity to share my life experience, my career as an appraiser, and would recommend to anybody that doesn't have the means to go to college and you're of the age to go, consider the military. There are ways to serve that you don't have to see combat. There are ways to serve that you're just in the reserves or that sort of thing. If you have to go down to be on the Mexican border a few weeks, you're not going to see combat there.
No.
And the GI Bill is a good deal. It's a great way to pay for college.
I completely agree. A lot of families served in the military. Actually, an upcoming guest is later in life is actually looking at going into the reserves. It's a fascinating story. I look forward to hearing that here soon. And but no, thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for your service. It's because of the thoughtful and really committed effort for individuals like you and others that we have the safety and security and freedom that this country has. So appreciate it, Glenn.
Well, you're welcome, and I'm grateful that I had the opportunity, that I did not have to see combat, that I got the GI Bill and my education. It's wonderful. My VA loan on my house.
Hey, even better. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Talk to you later.
Well, friends, thank you so much for joining us. And we can give Glenn thank yous for being a part of this, and continue to share, continue to be generous, and have a fantastic day until the next time we connect on our next episode.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose. We hope you enjoyed learning from the amazing professional paths and achievements of our beloved guests. Before we go, please subscribe on your listening channel, Spotify, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other podcast channels to hear more from appraisers and valuers regarding their life and their work. After you drop a comment below, who is one friend and peer you can generously share this episode with? If you have any suggestions or questions for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Just send us a message on LinkedIn and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks again for listening, and until we're together again for the next session of Appraisals, Appraisers on Purpose, create the change that you seek.